The WWF, what the world is watching. Turn it on and rip the knob off.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wrestling Memory Grenade, now at episode 194. I am Ray Russell and getting so close to another milestone, episode 200, but still just a few weeks away. Don't want to count the chickens before they hatch, but this week, guys, we jump back into yet another month here, the 1989 World Wrestling Federation project. This week, we jump into the month of May. 89 news and results, already a month removed from WrestleMania 5, unbelievable. And as we begin to tell the story of another month here in 1989, it's time to bring on another special guest co-host here for the program this week. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to welcome the one and only Mr. John Poz of the two-man Power Trip Empire. John, welcome to the Grenade.
Thank you for having me back, Ray. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, well, we've had you part of the Monday Warfare. We've covered some big one. We covered WrestleMania 5 together, the video cast. That was a blast. From Rocket Robin all the way to the Mega Powers exploding. That was a fun night with you there, brother. And looking forward to seeing a little fallout here this week as we look into some news and the results.
I don't know if Rocket Robin and the Mega Powers are quite on the same level there. I know it's the beginning and the end. I don't know if they're quite on the same level. I don't know if they equal out, but yeah.
Close enough, right? I mean, well, she tried.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk a lot more about the Mega Powers, maybe a little bit about Rock and Robin, too. Who knows what's going to happen here on the Greatest we get going. But before we get going with the world of WrestleCopia, John, why don't you tell everybody, once again, a little bit about that two-man Power Trip empire that you built?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip to see all the latest and greatest that we've got going on over there. Ton of interviews with a bunch of pretty rare guys, but pretty cool guys as well. Beverly Brothers was a couple weeks ago. Johnny Ace was a couple weeks ago. Had another episode coming up, I believe it's either this week or the following week with Vince Russo, talking all about WCW and even talking a little bit about Tony Khan with Russo, who I know they just did an interview together. So that was cool. I've obviously got Business to Business and taking to school with Dr. Tom Pritchard as well. So I got a lot of stuff going on over there, Two-Man Power Trip.
Very cool. I do a lot of impressions, or I pretend like I do a lot of impressions, John. And one of the ones I do when I'm downstairs with my son, because I do a lot of Dusty for him, a lot of Jim Ross. When I want to do whiny stuff, I'm Bret Hart, but he absolutely hates Johnny Ace. And I think it's the character that I portray. And I've given Johnny Ace my own famous quotes that he probably never actually said. And so whenever I start doing, gee whiz, Connor, like, he just goes, no. He's like, I'll talk to anybody. I don't want to talk to Johnny Ace right now. So it's fun to know that you were actually interviewing and speaking with Johnny Ace recently. I'll have to tell my son. He's
polarizing, as they say, polarizing. Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, he fits that bill, I think. But John, you're always knocking it out of the park. One big name after another. Just I don't even know where you pull them from. Sometimes I go, holy shit.
Me neither. Yeah.
It's great.
Me neither.
Man.
It's crazy.
So I encourage everybody to go check out, if you haven't already, all the latest interviews there that John's putting out there. And John, I don't know if you did. Did you tell him about the TeePublic store?
Oh, yeah, tpublic.com/store/TMPT. They got some cool stuff. You got the Hogan era stuff. You got the era of the Hitman stuff. The book will be coming out soon. And the Two-Man Power Trip stuff. So a lot of cool stuff. A little old school Coliseum logo, too, that I love. So good stuff on there. Check out TeePublic. Thank you. Yep.
And I notice you mentioned the Hogan era, and that's what you're here for this week, to talk a little Hogan era. Or as I like to call it, the Hulkamania era, brother, even though I'm sad to admit that because we know where I stand. But it is what it is.
Yes.
Well, but I call it like I see it, though. I'm the body. I'm Jesse Ventura. I'm fully aware of where the Hulkster stands here right now, especially coming out of WrestleMania 5, the new, once again, WWF champion. Your man.
As well it should be. I felt like all was right in the world after that, especially as a kid.
I was going to say.
That was one of those things where I always put Hogan Savage in my top 10 of WrestleMania matches all the time, just for the importance of it. Mm-hmm. And when I go back and I think about it, how it was life changing. Like Hogan had to win this match. It was like so Yeah, no, it was like life or death, basically. He had to win, and he won. I thought it was awesome.
That's kind of funny. That's how I felt about a year from now. But maybe we'll talk about that when we get there in 1990.
Yes.
But right now,
and I literally felt the same way and was absolutely devastated and crushed when he lost. Like devastated that he lost.
I get that. You got to lose someday, right? And Warriors' Day would come. Everybody's day comes, and right now, Randy Savage's day has come for the time being. Anyway, the Macho Man falling to Hulk Hogan there at WrestleMania. Now we're going to talk about everything coming out of the big pay-per-view. We've covered the last 4 weeks of TV. Now we're going to see what they're going to bring to us here in the month of May. And we always kick these things off with a little May news. We're going to go into the news department. John, I talked to you a little bit offline about this a day or two ago, and I did a lot of digging because I really wanted more answers outside of just a couple of lines that were in the observers that I was going through. So I went and found some actually news articles and things of that nature. I slapped this whole writing together, so bear with me, guys. This is a story that will unfold over the course of 2 years, 2.5 years, technically, if you count when it all went down. And this is involving another one, one of my favorites growing up, Jake the Snake Roberts. John, were you a Jake fan?
Yes. I have a feeling everybody was a Jake fan. I don't know why either, because he didn't do anything like outwardly super babyface. Like I love the Bushwhackers, but they were like so outwardly babyface-esque, if you will. Obviously, I love Hogan, but he didn't do anything that was like, oh, I got to cheer this guy. He was just so damn cool. And then when he was a heel, I was like kind of afraid of him, but not afraid of him like Undertaker afraid. Right. You know, like you're like, there's something wrong with this guy. Like, don't mess with this guy. Keep 6 feet away from this guy. Very, very scary guy. But for some reason, as a babyface, absolutely loved him. I thought he was so cool.
Well, apparently somebody else thought he was cool too. Now, I don't know who this character is that Jake was riding around with. I'm going to guess maybe a super fan, maybe a mark as they call him. I'm not really sure what the story is necessarily of how they wind up in the car together, but I'm going to tell you guys a little story about something that actually transpired in December of 1988, and we're going to talk about it a lot more now here in the month of May of 89. Jake Roberts, the story of his arrest quickly became major news in Florida. By the following Monday after it had happened, it was the lead story on the front page of the Orlando Sentinel and was reportedly carried by newspapers across the state. The case stems from an incident in the early morning hours, 4 a.m. to be exact. That's never a good time to be on. December 6, 1980. What's keeping him up, John? December 6th.
Oof. If anybody's ever seen Beyond the Mat, I think you know.
Mm-hmm. So we go back to December of 1988, coming out of a TV tapings in Daytona Beach. According to reports, around that 4 a.m. time frame, Roberts and fellow passenger John Bartlett were riding together in a car when an argument broke out over women. They were arguing about Daytona Beach women. What else at 4 a.m. do you argue about than women? Authorities alleged that Roberts punched Bartlett in the eye and stomach, shattering bones around the eye socket. The legal cloud hung over Roberts for months while he continued performing for the World Wrestling Federation. In fact, he was still active on the road, as we know, well here into 1989, until a recent WWF event in Orlando on May the 8th. We'll talk about that a little more. May 8th, 1989, Jake Roberts competing and defeating Ted DiBiase on a house show. Minutes after the matchup, Roberts was arrested on aggravated battery charges stemming back to December in Daytona Beach. Now, Jake would post a $2,500 bond and be released later that night. But because of the ongoing case, viewers will soon see that Roberts will be written off of WWF television at the beginning of May TV. House show replacements are going to be brought in to cover his spot over the course of the next couple months against $1 Million Man on the house shows. And Vince McMahon Jr. Certainly can't be very happy with what's going on right now, but we've seen his boys get in trouble before.
Man, what in the hell is going on with Jake? None of this sounds good, by the way. Being up at 4 a.m, fighting over the women, doing other extracurricular activities. Does not sound good for the Snake.
Allegedly doing other.
Allegedly doesn't sound good. Yeah. All allegedly.
Well, I wanted to tell you guys to stay tuned and we'll cover this later on, but I want to wrap this whole thing up in a nutshell. That way, when we get there later, I got the full details fresh on my mind. So this story goes on as Jake has to wait a trial down the line here in 1989. He's going to be convicted in what was described as a one-punch road fight in Daytona Beach after a beer-drinking binge. That's what it's being called here in the courts. The sentencing, the judge came down hard on Roberts as he receives 10 years of probation, a $10,000 fine, Jake was also ordered to pay $11,000 in medical bills for Bartlett and complete 100 hours of community service. He had also been facing the possibility of as much as 2.5 years in jail. Now, during the sentencing, the judge reportedly scolded Jake, stating, "You think you can just go around popping people. You need to think before you act, Snake Man."
Oh, okay.
That's a lot.
I just wonder though, was he really injured at all at that point? Because I always remember that we were talking about that he had that neck injury. So was he really ever injured, or was he not really injured and they just pretended he was injured because of this thing that was going on? Or was he really injured and this thing was going on? Or was this thing just going on? Like what that? Like there's a lot of in outs, a lot of what have yous, a lot of question marks here.
And I haven't dug too deep into the injury. We know the injury was legit going back to 1987. Jake's referenced that and whatnot, but I'm wondering if he used this opportunity, and we'll have to wait and find that out later on in the summer of '89, to go and get surgery or go and rehab the neck or whatever, because he needed that time, right? These guys did not take time off to recover. So maybe that's what happens. Jake uses this time to better himself. I'd like to think so, but it's Jake, so who knows?
Yeah, that's one of those things where I doubt it on. No offense to the snake, but I doubt he was doing it to better himself. Doubt it.
Man, 10 years of probation for punching a guy. That's a lot of probation, man. And then a $10,000 fine, another $11,000 in medical bills, 100 hours of community service. The judge came down hard. It doesn't sound like something that you would throw somebody in the slammer for. So I'm on board with Jake not doing any time for this, though I don't know, how many times he's been arrested up to this point. He's not necessarily Haku at this stage, who had just been arrested last month for forcing a woman to bow before the king in the bar. That's another fun story from the time.
Jesus. Gotta love this business. Or at that point, anyway, you gotta love this business.
So the judge basically telling Snake, you can't go around hitting people just because you're a wrestler. You need to think before you act. Now, reportedly in the courts, Roberts visibly was emotional and sobbing, insisting that he acted in self-defense, claiming that Bartlett threw the first punch. At one point, he told the court, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Hey guys, I'm just an actor. I'm not a real fighter." So Jake basically playing it up that that's just a character I portray. I'm not a violent guy at all. And sobbing before the court as well. Jake, maybe he is an actor.
Maybe he's working the people there. He sounds like, all-time great worker there, Jake the Snake Roberts coming out.
So the story does not end there. It goes on, in fact, for another year and a half. Jake, well, he wasn't happy with the sentencing. 10 years of probation for Jake Roberts. He would have been in jail quite often, I would have to imagine, into the 1990s. So in May of 1991, a Florida state appellate court reviewed the conviction and overturned it by a 2-1 vote. The basis of the appeal centered on Jake Roberts' trial attorney, whom the court found may have been provided ineffective counsel. Among the issues ruled on, Jake's lawyer reportedly, he apologized to Jake after the sentencing for objecting to evidence when he should have forcefully challenged it, potentially weakening his own defense for the jury and Jake Roberts. Also, allegedly, Jake stated that his attorney had to be awakened in his hotel room the day of the trial, raising serious concerns about the preparation and competence of said attorney. When you got to come knocking on your own, that's something you do to Jake. Jake, get your ass up. You're going to miss the plane. And it's Jake trying to wake his attorney up.
Well, so I'm guessing he didn't do this through WWF. Like, he must have got his own guy here, right?
Yeah, no Jim Neidhart helped this time around.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's no Jerry McDivitt helping Jim the Anvil Neidhart get out of trouble there. Do you know that?
Well, I guess Vince didn't have a way to be paid back in this situation, so he wasn't going to get involved. So 2 appellate court judges, the representatives, thought they was poor enough, the lawyer's defense was poor enough that it was tainted, and the original trial was vacated, so the conviction stands no longer. Jake Roberts, a free man from probation as of May 1991.
Interesting. I just kind of just curious with Jake, how much did he wrestle during that time versus like the year before? Like, was he out for
Jake? They
missed a lot of matches.
Oh yeah, Jake has gone from May through, I want to say without looking, September, at least.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's out until this decision's rendered and all this stuff. So this definitely plays a big part because they put him back on the road, I believe, in October, if I remember correctly, and that's only because the sentencing was coming down, and Vince pretty much knew that Jake wasn't going to be spending any time in jail. So as long as he wasn't going to be in jail, Vince was happy to put him back on the road.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so. All this time, I just thought Jake went and got, some neck surgery and sat out. And this is something I never really did any digging into. And immediately I go, whoa, what is this? And naturally, I had to dig into the story and uncover every piece of it.
It's one of those things, too, where he, kind of disappears for a while and then comes back. And you just kind of, pick up where you left off. And you're like, all right, he was injured. All right, here we go. Let's just move forward. Yeah. And then you really go back and you look. Obviously, this is 30 years later, more than that. We're going back and we're looking. We're like, what the hell is this guy up to? 4 o'clock in the morning. What is this thing doing? What a nut. Yeah.
I can guess what he was up to. I know what I would have been up to at 4 o'clock in the morning, John, much less what Jake Roberts would have been up to at 4 a.m., in my 20s or whatever however old Jake was.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just one other piece of business here in the courts. So we just talked about King Haku last month. We talked about Jake Roberts, and now a little more court news on a guy by the name of David Sammartino. I've covered this a couple of times now. So it was about a year ago, going into WrestleMania 4, that David had attacked a fan and was immediately released from the company for doing so. David had been brought back briefly there prior to WrestleMania, right before Bruno quit the company, all jacked up, tan and looking very different.
Yep.
Apparently lost his cool, roid rage, whatever I don't really know what the situation was, but he attacks a fan, and there's more to this story because it took about a year to get into court and get this thing going. But I'm going to read a little tidbit here. I covered it a little bit a month or two ago, but there's a little more to the story now. David Sammartino had to make a public videotaped apology to the wrestling fan, Martin Gallagher, as well as the people of Watertown, New York, where the incident happened. And listen to this. He had to apologize to the Disabled Persons Action Organization for the incident where he kicked a fan in the mouth last year. You're not apologizing to the Disabled Persons Organization unless you're kicking a disabled person. So David Sammartino attacked somebody that was disabled. That's like a whole new level to this story.
I wonder, though, did he know that the person was disabled, or did he just act because he was just somebody hit him or something?
Right. Yeah, I don't really know.
Either way, it's not good.
No, not cool at all. So David Sammartino had to make the apology. It was part of a plea bargain that he had a warrant out for his arrest, so he was eluding New York there for about a year before he finally, I don't know if he turned himself in or whatever the story was, but he finally winds up going to court, and the judge says if you can make all of these apologies, it's going to be a 6-month adjournment in contemplation of a dismissal of all charges, which means as long as he keeps his nose clean, literally and figuratively, for 6 months, this whole thing's going to get dropped. So David having to apologize to everyone in sight.
Interesting thing with him is it seemed like he was always in some sort of trouble when he was in WWE. Remember the whole Ron Shaw thing?
Yes, I remember that vividly.
What the hell? It always seemed like there was something going on there. You know what I mean? He was maybe out to lunch a little bit. That was just weird. In the infancy of the internet, I didn't have it yet, and my cousin did, and I would go on there, and there wasn't a lot of information on there at that time, so I didn't know about this whole Ron Shaw incident, but I was already tape trading. And I get this house show, and I pop it in, and I see this happen, and even in 1996, we'll say, I go, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? And we know the story from there is he's fired or he quits or whatever. When he gets to the back, he's done. And they give him another shot here now that he's on the gas and he's Bruno's son. And that was the 2 strikes and you're out, David. The Ron Shaw thing is so funny because Ron was just thinking that he was going to shoot on the guy, and the guy kind of quit after that. But is that really the true story? There's such a weirdness around that. So just odd. And he ends up basically wanting to quit, and then he gets man, he just never seemed to quite grasp it. All right, guys, we're going to get out of the heavy stuff and get more into the fun side of things here. Talk about a couple of movie releases coming in the next few weeks here at a local theater near you. May the 19th, 1989 marks the release of a movie by the name of Roadhouse, featuring Terry Funk as a character named Morgan, but of course starring Patrick Swayze. Sam Elliott opens in theaters May the 19th, one of my favorite movies of all time. Man, that movie's awesome. Absolutely love that. Funk is great in it, too. But what a great movie.
he disappears in that last fighting scene. He's just laid out cold. We don't even get to see how Terry Funk gets laid out. That's the depressing part of the whole thing. That would have been a great bump. Terry probably would have took for that, but maybe that was a negotiation. I'll let you knock me out, but they ain't gonna show it. And so, but that's okay because we got another movie coming out June 2, pal. Major motion pictures, the way they're promoting it right here, ad nauseum on TV right now. I'm talking about No Holds Barred, featuring Rip 'em, brother. I think that's how he does it, right, John? And then Zeus, the debut of Zeus.
I saw this in the movies. I absolutely love.
Did you see it in the movie? Okay, you saw it in the theaters.
One of the, you could throw it out there though. One of the, maybe possibly one of the greatest movies of all time. Just gonna throw that there. Maybe I got the. You got the. I don't know if you can see it right up there. Got the poster up there.
I don't pop too often, but I'm popping for that one. All right, guys, we go on.
And it's so funny. This is like, I guess it was 2022. I went down to a Hogan's Beach Shop and I met Hulk. I mean, this huge line. I mean, it was pandemonium over there.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't know why, I didn't have like, because I was with my friend and his family and his wife and stuff. So I didn't really have a car. They gave me their car to drive there because they're in Orlando. It's like a 2-hour drive to Clearwater. So I drove, but I had my book bag and I was like, oh, what can I bring to sign? The only thing I had was a No Holds Barred. I don't want to grab it because it's going to ruin my setup up here, but there's a No Holds Barred picture of Hogan and Zeus on one side, and the other side is Hogan and Rip. Or Hogan is dressed as Rip with the Rip 'em shirt. Yeah, it's just like so random. Hulk's like, "Whoa, where'd you get this, brother?" Like, and he's signing it, but he's probably like, "What the hell? What a random picture do you have signed?" No, but I have so many other Hogan autographs, so it's like I don't know because I wasn't going to bring a picture. But he have an 8x10. I have another 8x10. Then I have another. Like I have so many Hogan autographs. I think I have 7 or 8 of them. So I didn't know what to have, and the only thing I brought with me for some God knows what reason, my book bag was this awesome No Holds Barred picture, and that's what Hogan signed for me.
Very cool.
But he was just like, "Where the hell did you get this, brother?"
Well, he's had to have seen a lot of things, so for him to actually make a comment,
it's just so random.
That's pretty damn cool. I dropped the ball myself. I'll admit, he was pushing that beer brand very hard here in my particular area for whatever reason, I don't know.
Yep.
But I mean, he was pushing it hard in my area. He was here 3 times in the matter of 3 months. He visited my buddy's bar and he hit the grocery store at the end of the city twice. And every time I was like, I should go. And then I was just too lazy to get my ass and go stand in a line, So
damn it.
I and that was he passed away a couple months after.
Yeah.
So I dropped the ball and I blame myself. Would have been nice to have just met him one time and spoke 2 words or something like that with him, but never had that opportunity, unfortunately. Now, we talked about movies. We're also going to see some commercials beginning to pop up here on TV featuring Miller Lite, the beer, and we're going to see Vince McMahon, Mean Gene Okerlund, of course, Jesse the Body Ventura, and the familiar man by the name of the Uke, Bob Uecker. So I like those commercials, really fun commercials with the Body and the Uke.
Love Uke. So he's so funny. One of those guys that just he fit great into wrestling. I wish he was in it more.
Yeah, we were just watching WrestleMania 2 the other day, me and my son. I said, man, this would be a perfect spot for Bob Uecker. He should have been at every WrestleMania. We needed Uecker in our lives. He just fit so perfectly into the wrestling world. He got it. More than some of the guys got it, it felt like.
Yes, yeah. Did you like WrestleMania 2, by the way? Did you enjoy that show?
Yeah, I'm okay with 2.
It's kind of just wacky to think he tried to do in 3 different cities basically at the same time. It's just like a wacky concept, like a crazy idea.
Well, Crockett did 2. Vince had to do 3. That's all that was. I mean, you hear Bruce Pritchard tell it all the time, how much Vince said and Pat and all them said how much they lost their ass because they tried, they had to pay 3 venues, 3 productions. Yeah, it's silly. That's why.
Although I love Hogan Bundy in the cage. That's true. Definitely. I love Hogan Bundy in the cage.
I love Elvira, and that's one of my favorite parts of the show.
Join the list, brother. Yeah.
Well, congratulations are in order for Dick Ebersol, who has been named the head of NBC Sports. So Ebersol now here in 1989 being forced to divest himself of all the companies that he worked with Vince McMahon, and will no longer be a part of the Saturday night's main event programming moving forward. So Ebersol was very hands-on. He had a lot of sidebar jobs with Vince, production company, things like that. He was working together with Vince. He really helped produce that first Royal Rumble on USA Network. So Ebersol was a lot deeper into the WWF than some people might realize. He really helped with the production there for a while. And fortunate for him, he's being promoted even higher up in NBC, but that means you can no longer show favoritism. You can't have your hands on all these different cookie jars. So Ebersol, we're going to see, I feel like at least after this May Saturday night's main event, a very big change, and maybe not for the better in regards to the quality of the Saturday night's main event programming.
Well, it's so interesting around that time period, and I just learned this from watching like Seinfeld clips. So I thought this was crazy that he's kind of brokering this deal. Basically, they're saying we can't afford this show, Seinfeld, this new show in '89. We're going to put it out there. It's going to be this new hit show with this young comedian, Jerry Seinfeld. Right. They don't have the money for it, so they kind of make a deal. Basically, hey, we'll make good to WWF. Can we use one episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, that money? And we'll be able to film 4 episodes of Seinfeld with that money.
Wow.
They filmed the 4 episodes of Seinfeld, and the rest is history. So without WWF, without Ebersol, without Vince agreeing to it and getting that make good, in the back end of it, and obviously, really good make good, I'm sure. And I'm sure a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, here's something in your pocket there, Vince. Without that, who knows about Seinfeld? So without WWF, without Saturday Night's Main Event, we don't know if there's ever Seinfeld. Arguably, the greatest comedy of all time. So throw that out there. Good job, Dick and Vince.
I was going to say, all those people that hate Vince McMahon and love Seinfeld, what do you got to say now? What do you got to say now? Yeah, exactly.
Got him. Yes. Yes.
Well,
how about that, pal?
Yeah,
take that, pal.
It's funny to hear a story. I had not heard that story before. Thank you for sharing that here on the Grenade Shot. It's crazy. That's pretty damn cool. Man, there's been a lot of back and forth with the pay-per-views, Starrcade versus Survivor Series, Royal Rumble up against, this and that, and WrestleMania going head-to-head with Clash 6. We talked about that. But we're not doing that anymore. What we are doing, however, is, it was no coincidence, the WWF booked Nashville, Tennessee, the night before the NWA's Wrestle War pay-per-view here, and then proceeded to stretch the house show out past 11:30 p.m., forcing the NWA to start setting up for their pay-per-view at 1 a.m. before an afternoon. The show was going on early in the afternoon, by the way. Yeah, so they say you usually need about 24 hours to set up production. Vince left them with about half that time, intentionally, obviously, there. And the NWA also has a Great American Bash card booked for June 23rd in New Haven. Well, guess what? The WWF randomly decided we're going to have a show the same night in Hartford now, pal, on a Thursday, featuring Hulk Hogan, who did not work Thursdays. And now, Dave Meltzer, this is a fun line and I'm paraphrasing here. I'm trying to remember how he worded it, but he said, there's nothing wrong with that. That's called business. That's called good business. It's the whole they're not competition part that Dave didn't care for, because clearly when you're screwing with them like this, you look at them as competition. Yep. But think about that. And I'll take it another step further in that story, running Nashville the night before the pay-per-view and extending it. It was originally just an A show or a B show. They actually fused together Voltron, an A and B show. That's why it runs
super show.
11 I think it's 11 matches. So they're they're just going at it hard there on Turner can afford to lose the money, but it's just what shady practices, pal.
Are you a big fan of the Final Countdown? That video with Flair and Steamboat and that awesome song? Yeah,
it's like it was made in a different time in a different company. It was like nothing about the NWA says that they made that video. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, so true. I was like, oh my God, did WWF do this? This is crazy. Yes, so true. I just think it's amazing though when you look at it. They're not competition, and then it's like, oh, it's Hulk available. Like, what? Like, that's crazy. Like, oh, my God. I could see, like, oh, let's get the Bushwhackers and the Brainbusters, like whoever. You know what I mean? Like that. But you're getting Hogan? Jesus Christ. That's competition.
It's one thing to run the next city over. I don't know how far New Haven is from Hartford or whatever, but Connecticut's not a big state, right? And so to do that is one thing. To go, no, we're going to bring in the Hulkster on his day off. Yeah. Just a really versus Savage, by the way, I should point out.
Yeah, that was like that random after AEW killed NXT for all the time. Then all of a sudden, randomly, a year or whatever it was later, they were running up against them again. And they're like, "Call the Undertaker. Is he available?" It's like, oh no, AEW's not competition anymore. Oh yeah, Undertaker. I think Cena might have been on that show too, for crazy. And Paul Heyman. It was like, yeah, they might be competition if you're calling out all the big guns. Crazy. Well, hey, Hogan of all people, Jesus Christ, that's nuts.
Well,
don't even tell me it was Hogan versus Savage either.
It was Hogan and Savage, absolutely.
Oh my God! What else you gonna Steamboat and Flair got screwed by those two. Damn.
I'm telling you, man. Well,
But
John,
business.
it wasn't that long ago that we covered WrestleMania 5, and the WWF officially here in the month of May announcing that SummerSlam 1989 will take place August 28th from the Meadowlands in New Jersey. That's a little closer to you than I.
Yeah.
The old SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Time to feel the heat, John.
That's like my home away from home there. It's like my home venue, my home arena. Basically 45 minutes, not bad at all. Rode by it today.
Oh, very cool. Well, you're into the business of the business. And so
Yes.
I thought I'd bring up this here specifically on this episode. The recent Madison Square Garden card that featured Hulk Hogan versus the Big Boss Man inside that big blue bar steel cage drew a whopping, and this is in 1989 money, $286,461 gate. That's $763,000 in today money. And here in 1989, Meltzer reporting that was the third largest gate in wrestling ever to be held at Madison Square Garden, only trailing WrestleMania 1 and SummerSlam 88, both of which had elevated ticket prices. So this house show,
wow,
the cage match, does number 3 only to pay-per-views.
And here's an interesting question for you. Is this the day that they also ran Boston Garden the same day and did Hogan? So theoretically, let's just say almost equal money. They made over $1 million doing Hogan Bossman at two different towns in the same day.
Yeah.
In 89, or you know what I mean? Like if you think about
in today's money, in today's money, they made well over $1 million.
Show.
Yeah. 2
house shows.
Yeah, that's
Holy
insane.
Jesus.
$750,000 in today's money there in New York City. That's unbelievable, and a pat on the back to the Boss Man for.
I was going to say, you got to give it up to Boss Man.
Yeah, Hogan's Hogan, but you got to have, and Hogan would draw. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like Hogan was setting this record every time he came to town. So kudos to the Boss Man, one of my favorites of all time growing up. So I like reading.
That's awesome, though, that like they bring in Bossman. Hogan's like, look, give me this guy, brother. You know what I mean? Like, I like this guy. He's got a look, or whatever. And then they run basically 2 towns the same day. They do the intermission main event. They do the real main event. One's in Boston. One's in New York City. Yeah. And boom, they're making $1 million plus in today's money. But in '89, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just nuts. Wow. Yeah, awesome for Boss Man.
Yeah, like a $1 million plus gate for one day's work. Way to go, Boss Man. What's up?
Just to throw a little curveball to you here. Mm-hmm. Do you think that they should have kept the Boss Man feud going and said F Zeus, or was the movie too important where you couldn't say F Zeus and you had to?
The movie was not important to me to see Zeus in the ring. Although he was a great optic, the visual was amazing, but then the bell, I hate to just, quote other people, but the bell rings with Zeus, and it's all downhill from there. Obviously, Randy's there to cover that up as best he can.
But it seemed like Boss Man, there was like so much more money there if they would have made it like pay-per-view feud. You know what I mean?
I think the mistake was they did these cage matches too early. Once you've made the rounds, it's going to be on NBC here in May. So what do you
Which
follow
is
that
awesome.
up with?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm
like, how are you going to follow it up? And
I'm never going to tell you that they shouldn't have prolonged or pushed a Boss Man feud along further, because that's some really fun stuff, those two. And Hogan actually trusting him and taking spots that Hogan didn't normally take with anybody.
No.
And he hadn't even known him that long, right? Boss Man hadn't even been in the company a year at this point.
No, guys, absolutely crazy. But it just shows you, it's like, man, maybe that should have been the SummerSlam main event. Hogan and Boss Man in the cage.
I would have been there, man. I wouldn't have been there, but in heart and spirit and on pay-per-view, I would have been there.
Yes. My friend, he went to 88 and 89 SummerSlam, if I'm remembering correctly, because I remember I was so jealous. Because his older cousins were big marks, so they took him. Awesome. Jealous. Very jealous.
I can understand that. I've been there. Well, from the Observer, I got this news bit here. At the April house show in St. Paul, Minnesota, featured on top the Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude. Rude went up to special referee, well, maybe not special, but in this market, Eddie Sharkey, and gave him a bunch of $100 bills, what Meltzer says for no apparent reason, telling Sharkey that if it wasn't for him, Rude would have never had the chance to make the money that he was making today, because Sharkey was the one who discovered Rude as a bouncer in the bars and trained him to become a professional wrestler several years ago. Sharkey, you talk about all those Minnesota boys, most of them were trained by Eddie Sharkey.
Believe it or not, check out the TMPT archives. I have interviewed Eddie Sharkey. Had
Very cool.
Talked about all those Minnesota guys. So cool, like getting the dynamic. Like I thought him and Gagne were close, and then you realize they weren't really that close. And like there's definitely a dynamic there where maybe he felt like he wasn't getting as much credit as he should have for kind of finding all those guys and kind of developing those guys. It's just insane that many good wrestlers and that guys that look like that are, like, what the hell's in the water up there? You know what I mean? Like that's just like amazing.
No, 100% agree with you, man. And it's just so cool to hear that someone the stature of a Rick Rude, the very first moment he's making real money now, intercontinental title level money. He's headlining the B shows, and he hands off, a few $100. Thank you.
Pretty cool.
It's showing respect and appreciation.
Yeah. Did you know this? This is an interesting story. So I'm buddies with Rick Bassman, who obviously found the Warrior. He found Sting. He found John Cena. Found a bunch of really, really, I mean, we're talking about creme de la creme, top talent here. So there's an agreement because he let Sting and Warrior basically be trained. Obviously, a little bit of Red Bastien, mostly Bill Anderson. They're training these guys. They're getting them ready. They're so green that, are they really going to make it? Are they not? Bassman sees money in them just as far as like their look. He thought this is like the look of the next generation. These guys are awesome. Look at these guys. Maybe they can't work. Maybe they're green as grass, but I'm going to do this for free, and they're going to end up having to pay me back. Sting agrees to it. Warrior agrees to it. Basically, Bassman, after they make it big, and he's still friends with Sting, Warrior basically tells him to F off, but he basically says, he's like, oh, Warrior, you're not going to pay me the money that you agreed to? F off. Never going to do it. Go screw yourself. You try to scam me, con me, blah, blah. I'm out of here. Sting, who, by the way, is still friends with Rick Bassman to this day. Okay. Sting meets Bassman, gives him the money he owes him, and, they agreed they're still friends. They're part ways. Sting goes, wait a second. That's not it. Takes out more money and goes, here's the money Warrior owes you.
Wow.
Boom. So not only did Sting, who's like the nicest guy in the world, give him the Bassman the money because he said he would when they were green and nothing, and he trained them for free. He agreed to pay him back, and he goes, you know what? I know Jim's not going to pay you back, so I'm going to pay you back for him. And I think Warrior hated Sting for it because it seemed like there was a bit of animosity between them because of it.
I could see someone the mentality of the Ultimate Warrior being upset that somebody else would cover his costs.
Yep. And like, how could you be friends with this guy? Like, it kind of doesn't make sense on Warrior's part, but that's Warrior. That's why he is the way he was.
Well, I was just a wrestling fan. I was a little Warrior once upon a time, but I'm totally aware of all the outside stories that have come up.
Yes.
And
I just thought that was so cool as Sting. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. That's a good human being right there. Is what that is.
Yeah.
And again, as much as I understand the mentality of the Ultimate Warrior, I also understand the humanity of someone like Sting, Steve Borden. So that doesn't surprise me either. Now, you want to talk about big, jacked up looking dudes who were supposed to be the next big thing? Let's talk just quickly about a guy by the name of Tom Magee. And
oh my God.
Still here in 1989. Vince McMahon still trying to get this guy over, but he's almost done with him. This is McGee's last run.
You know what's crazy? There's an Arn Anderson match. It's like 7 minutes. It's really good with Tom Magee. Obviously, Arn is world class. I mean, he's like one of the best. Yeah. So he might be carrying him. I'm just going to preface it. He might be carrying him, but that match is great.
Well, it all comes from, they realized supposedly that Bret carried him in that first match was the reason he gets all these opportunities. I've seen Tom Magee on some of the house show matches that are out there. Very impressive looking. He can do some cool ass shit for his air, these flips and things he can do for a guy that looks like that. Amazing. Not really much of a personality. And I think he could have existed on a roster. He was never, ever going to be anywhere near the main event. And that's what Vince thought before the Warrior came along. He was going to be the Warrior. I don't mean in character, but in the place of Hogan. That was supposed to be Hogan's replacement in Vince's mind. And they gave him all these opportunities. And now he keeps going away. He's getting, trained in Texas, trained in Stampede, getting all this training, and he's just really not coming along like they'd like. And so finally here in 1989, Vince says, fuck it. He's not going to be our next big baby face. Make him a heel. And now he's managed by Jimmy Hart on the house shows, but he's also working full time, which he had never done before either. He's on the road full time right now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but they've christened him with the nickname Mega Man, which, as we know, Vince probably had no idea where that came from, but had this ever made TV, that name would have been pulled away pretty quickly.
Yes. Yes, I love that video game, by the way. I used to be obsessed with Mega Man. Love Mega Man. Yeah, so good. The thing was with McGee, which is just going to throw this out here too, another TMPT shameless plug. I interviewed Tom McGee. Okay. In my head, this is crazy because somebody asked me the other day, like, "Oh, what's like the most rare interview you got?" And I said, "I got to be possibly Tom McGee because I have no idea how I found him. I somehow had his number. I don't know if it was because I had an old buddy who used to be the photographer for JCP, Eddie Cheslock. If you ever see those brick background pictures and you see like a young Sting with Ole and arm, those are all Eddie Cheslock pictures. So people should be giving him the credit or giving his wife the money for those pictures. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I don't know if he somehow gave me the number. I don't even know. But somehow I found Tom McGee's number. I called him. Somehow he agreed to do the interview. It was like, I was like, this is unbelievable. Freaking Tom McGee. So I was talking to him about that. He was saying at the time, he didn't even realize that Vince thought he was like the next Hogan. He must have never said it to him. He just thought like he was just getting opportunities because he had a good look. Yeah, he was a little green, but he could work a little bit. He was athletic. He worked in Canada, all this different stuff. But it's one of the things where it's like, Vince, like, how crazy are you? Like, you're watching the match with Pat Patterson. You go, we have our next Hogan. And Pat Patterson's like, wow, this guy thinks Bret is the next Hogan. Like, wow, all right. And he goes, Tom McGee. And he's like, wait, what? Like, we just watched the same match? Like, it's so funny. Like, what in the world? But McGee was an awesome athlete. It's kind of crazy. He's 6'4". He's a power lifter. This guy's doing flips and stuff. It's like, what a freak
Karate,
athlete.
too. He had some kind of martial arts background.
Yeah,
well. But he was the real deal. It's just, unfortunately, it didn't translate over, connect with the fans, I guess, maybe, and like I said, from what I saw with him, I feel like, and this goes back to that Meltzer narrative, whatever he puts in there, a lot of people follow it along. Nobody was watching Tom McGee. So I don't know how so many people have formed an opinion on Tom. I've seen every bit of footage that exists. The Bret Hart match came out finally.
Yes.
The Arn Anderson match you referenced, a few of the other house show matches he's had.
Tim Horner matches out there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the Tim Horner matches here in a little bit when we get to the house shows. But I mean, there's really nothing wrong per se. My biggest thing was, as a babyface, he wasn't really following up. You know what I mean? Like getting to the next move, transitioning kind of thing. Other than that, I really didn't have any fault in him. It's just the personality wasn't there to be headlining, but he could have easily been on a card. I wasn't offended by his work.
Yep. The thing is, too, and not to say like Jim Powers or Paul Roma, like, oh, they're like Tom McGee, but like he could have been in that role. You know what I mean? Like he's wrestling Iron Mike Sharp or Boris Zukov or whatever.
Easily above Jimmy Powers. And I was more of a Powers than a Roma guy, but I mean, Roma, I'll give him credit
better
where it's
worker.
due. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah.
The thing is, though, too, Tom McGee, okay, Mega Man, like this and this. I know he kind of looked like him, but like, did his personality equal like a gimmick? And probably not. That was definitely his downfall.
Right. No, and we'll talk a little bit more about Tom in a little bit here when we get to some of the marriages here on the house shows. But before we do that, just a couple little news bits. Barry Windham, no longer with the NWA by this point, though he's still negotiating. He may return. Windham left shortly after Dusty was removed from the book. Barry was very paranoid with booking with Dusty Rhodes not at the helm. I don't know if that was Dusty putting that in his head. I don't know if that was Barry just, trusted Dusty going back to the Blackjack days and everything in between.
Maybe listen to J.J. Dillon, too. Maybe.
Well, that could be it, because we know JJ's already jumped ship. He's over here in the WWF. And Barry, not too far away as well. So Barry was
What about that nickname?
The Widowmaker? I didn't understand it at the time.
No, I literally remember having that card. Remember those old
the trading
little trading card? Yeah. And it said Widowmaker. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, it's like, what the hell? Like, I know this is Barry Windham, but why is he called the Widowmaker? What the hell?
Yeah. It's it's promos that I saw later on. I had never even noticed during this period. He explained it. It was the bull. It was the big bad bull that crippled a lot of the cowboys at the rodeo, and that was him. He was the Widowmaker, and
yes,
it's like okay, I guess. I mean, I don't care about the nickname, but they tried to make him the Widowmaker versus being Barry Windham, and that was like, I think that's where we're going to go wrong here. This little run, never really takes off for various reasons, from injuries to counterfeit money and everything in between.
Yep. Do you think, oh my God, that whole thing with him and his dad, and like what the hell's going on there? That's just crazy. But do you think that he's like the smoothest wrestler ever? Because a lot of people say like Randy Orton, right? Like smoothness. You think Barry Windham?
Oh yeah.
Oh really? You don't like Randy? Oh wow.
No, not in that sense. I mean, I don't see Randy Orton as being smooth, very methodical, and not even my taste either. But
no, but like a guy that you could tell, like they basically said, like they called Dustin the natural, but the natural really was Barry Windham. So even though Dustin's awesome, they were saying like the guy could literally come, like wake up out of bed and be like, "Oh, I got a 60-minute match with Flair tonight," and just like be awesome. Yeah,
two smoothest wrestlers I've ever seen are both second generation guys, Barry Windham and
Rhodes
Armstrong.
Brett Armstrong. Okay. Yep. What about Brett? Brett's got to be up there too.
Yeah, he's smooth. He's smooth, but he's just on the offense. He's smooth. Like Barry would just kind of take a bump and move into flow into the next spot.
I always was amazed when like he could take a bump, but almost like flip over and like get into the next spot. It's like,
yes,
that's like something like Rey Mysterio does. It's like this guy's 6'7". Yeah. Like what? Like how the hell is that possible? Yeah.
When Barry was peaking here in the mid to late 80s, he was, I don't know that there was anyone better as a baby face. And he had the best look in the world. Right before he left Turner and came to the WWF, that tan, that kind of maybe some pharmaceuticals were enhancing him.
Yes.
And the ponytail. I mean, that was a badass. That dude had money written on it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't shake out here as we move forward. We're going to see Barry here before too long.
Did you love his LaGrange WCW theme song? Is that one of the greatest themes like that?
Yeah.
Awesome. That was so cool. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite. I remember I was at the Richfield Coliseum one time, and I guess I was sitting there, and it was intermission, and that music hits. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm waiting for Barry Windham to come out.
Yeah. Oh,
he wasn't with the company, obviously, at the time. He was in WCW, but I was like, what the hell is that? So
that's like when you're watching SportsCenter and like the Hardy Boys music comes on, you're like, what? Yeah. Or Luger's theme, you're like, what the hell? Like, how is this possible?
Yeah, good times, man. So there's I don't want to say character change. We've talked about a character change recently here on the Grenade, the Lanny Poffo becoming the Genius, which is quite frankly awesome. But there's going to be a new look for Koko Beware, who hasn't really been on TV very much lately. Do you remember the look I'm referencing here, Koko Beware? Heading into the middle of 1989, he's going to dye his hair
new jacket?
Blonde. No, he's going to dye his hair blonde.
Oh, yes.
Paint the sides of his head. I always liked that look on Koko. A lot of people thought it made him look stupid. I thought it really enhanced him and gave him something. But I'm looking at it as a kid, right? Like, that's cool. You're painting your shit up. It looks cool to me.
I don't know why. I always loved him. I don't know. Like, I remember my friends used to joke around, like, why do you like Koko Beware so much? I just thought he was awesome. I don't know. There's something about him. He was just like, come on, the Birdman is he. Come on. I just loved him.
It's just
a great singer, too. That, great voice.
Oh, yeah, John. It's too bad you didn't have a tape of Koko in Memphis, when your friends were over back in those days.
Yeah.
They would have had a new appreciation and fear for Koko Beware, believe me, guys. One last piece of news before we jump in to look at some of the house show matches. Roddy Piper is claiming to be interested in working for either the NWA or WWF. As of recently, he'd only signed on to compete at WrestleMania 5 as part of that long segment with Brother Love and Morton, Mr. Downey. So the NWA folks are a little apprehensive going back after the Hot Rod. There's still some bitterness over the last negotiations. Apparently, story goes Jim Herd missed the Chi-Town Rumble card earlier this year and the matchup between Steamboat and Flair because he had a meeting scheduled with Roddy Piper's manager David Wolf in New York City at the same time. However, David Wolf had already made the deal for Piper to work WrestleMania, so Herd's trip to New York was all for naught at that point in time. However, never say never. They're still looking to talk with the Hot Rod. We know he's going to go the way of the New York territory, pal. But it's kind of interesting. What would have happened had Roddy Piper came to the NWA in 1989?
Wow, that would have been crazy. It almost seems like a bluff on his part, though. I can't see that happening.
No, I think Piper knew where his bread was buttered, where the machine was that was going to make him the most money with the merchandise and everything in between. But just think about that for a minute. Piper and Flair, Piper and Steamboat, Piper and Funk, Piper and Muda? That would have been weird, right? No, yes.
Sting, what about Piper Sting?
Yeah, that would have been fun. Definitely. Yeah, a lot of interesting dynamics we could have seen there, but I'm happy to say that the Hot Rod is here with the World Wrestling Federation, and we are going to be right back with you guys. Talk all about some of the house shows coming up here in the month of May in '89, right after this quick WrestleCopia timeout.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at USWApodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here. Lots of new stuff happening here at WrestleCopia, and I want to update you on everything going on with the brand right now. First and simple, if you haven't checked out our website at WrestleCopia.com, it's a great way to keep up with the latest episodes of all of your favorite Copia programming, from the Wrestling Memory Grenade to Regional Wrestling with the Territory Talk, the Wrestling Stoop with the legendary Bob Roop, Professor Dan Ginnity and the Pro Wrestling Academy, and all the other great podcasts from Gene Jackson, Bob Smith, Dave Dynasty, and the boys from the Other Ship. And of course, all of those programs also available at your favorite podcast streaming platforms. And if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the Copia world, all the latest news, random thoughts, fun videos, pictures, and more, make sure to join the more than 33,000 followers over at Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. Don't be left out. Please also follow us at the former Twitter, now X, at Wrestling Grenade, and subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. Would also greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review at your favorite podcast apps, guys, because every positive review makes our podcasts more visible in the algorithms, if you will, which allows us to continue to grow. Now, for those who have been asking about merchandise, WrestleCopia merch, you can find plenty of designs for our t-shirts, hats, magnets, stickers, coffee mugs, and more over at the TeePublic store. That is tpublic.com/user/WrestleCopia. And last but definitely not least, it's what keeps the entire machine going. I'm talking about patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Now with 3 major tiers and tons of Patreon exclusive next level content for our supporters. Remember guys, no subscription, cancel any time, but I think you'll like the content that we're offering there for any budget you may have. And you can sign up right now, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
All right, guys, welcome back to the program. John Poz still with me here as we jump into some of the house shows. John, we're going to look at some of the marriages on the road between the workers through the spring of 1989. A lot of the matches from April are going to continue over here into the month of May. We're going to see some changes as well. And John, really, I invite you to give me your input, not just on the talent, but some of the matches they were throwing out here. We're doing A, B, and C-Town shows right now. So we're going to see how strong each house show is at this moment.
I'm very interested. I am intrigued.
Well, before we get into the basic matches that we're going to see throughout the entire month of May, there was a show that kicked off May 1st, Cops Coliseum, Hamilton, Ontario. And there were some interesting matchups on it. We're going to talk about some of them later on, so I'll leave those out. But they did switch things up a little bit here at Cops Coliseum. Instead of, we're going to see Curt Hennig and Bret Hart for the majority of May. Instead, it's Rick Martel pinning the Hitman here in Cops. But we didn't end there. We end the show. This is very peculiar. A 16-man battle royal, the only show to have one. And it's kind of fun, though. And this footage is available out there as part of the Best of the WWF Volume 20, by the way, for anybody who's curious checking this one out. 16-man battle royal, the final four. Listen to this. Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Rick Martel, and Tito Santana. Man, that just sounds has fun written all over it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I like that.
So here's the finish real quick, just anybody curious. So the Hitman going to score a win in the 16-man Battle Royal because it is Canada after all. Last eliminating Mr. Perfect, the final four I talked about. Tito Santana tossed by Mr. P, but Santana remaining ringside and costing Rick Martel an elimination. So we're telling the story there, the feud of Rick Martel and Tito, leading to Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart going at it one-on-one there at the end of the Battle Royal, and Bret Hart going over in his native Canada. Very fun. Very different.
I like that. Yeah, definitely. Especially here. Like, Brett, is this the start of his, like mini ascension here? Is this the start of the possible singles run, the possible push?
The second attempt at splitting Bret Hart and the Anvil up once again into solo acts here, just like they did after WrestleMania 4. They're going to give the Hitman another opportunity here after WrestleMania 5. We know it's not going to take permanently until 1991, but Bret Hart will get another shot here throughout the spring and summer to show what he has as a singles competitor. Right now, going to be taking on Mr. Perfect, and we'll talk about those matches in just a little bit. Right now, we're going to look at the C shows throughout the month of May. May 1st through the 8th specifically here. Going to do the tour of the East Coast, the Carolinas, Crockett Country, into Ohio, and back down to Florida. There was really no reason or rhyme back in the day to the house show, quote-unquote, loop, right? It was like Kakalaki, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, all right in a row. Just really odd. Just all over the place, these guys.
Yeah, don't you think, especially at that point, that you're going to be good to the guys and do it systematically, help them out a little with the run?
I forget who was structuring the travel schedules at this point in time, but I something tells me they weren't on the road with the boys, right? Just reading off cities on a piece of paper just doesn't sit the same. But here's what we're doing. This is the C show, John, and this is a rough one to defend. But I'm going to let you. If anybody's going to defend it, you'll defend it. So I'm gonna read you some of these matches here. I want to get your take on the talent involved and just basically the C show in general. On these C shows, heel Tom McGee scoring pinfalls over Tim Horner. The Barbarian now in solo. Defeating Jim Neidhart every night. Big John Studd over Andre the Giant by disqualification. The Genius is making his debut in character on this loop, going over Barry Horowitz. Jim Duggan scoring victories over King Haku. And the savior of the night, you have to believe, the Rockers defeating the fabulous Rougeaus here on these C shows.
Man, it's actually, when you think about it, I would actually enjoy it. I think some of those matches would end up being pretty good, pretty entertaining. Not that great, not that great, but I feel the Rockers definitely that match probably awesome. Yeah.
If these matches are reported in order, they seem to be closing the shows wisely with the Rockers match and putting Andre and Studd on before the intermission, which is just. I've had so many people ask me, what were they thinking? This wasn't even that good in 1985, Andre and Studd. What was Vince thinking trying to get these guys in the ring in 1989? It was not a pretty sight whatsoever.
Crazy. That's so weird, too, because he obviously knew Studd could barely move. And Andre could barely move. What the hell was he thinking about?
Well, what do you make of, we know eventually Bret's going to go solo. You were talking about that a little bit. And we know the Powers of Pain are going to go solo a year from now. But what do you make of this? Coming out of WrestleMania, they had already intended on splitting the Warlord and the Barbarian, not permanently, but for a few months here. They're going to both be given solo gigs to kind of test the waters and see what they have here, because they've already reached the pinnacle, and they weren't really over in that heel run there with Demolition. And where do you go from there after losing to the Demos at WrestleMania? Well, let's see what we got in singles here, splitting up the Warlord and Barbarian. Warlord, we'll talk a little bit more about him when we get to his house show, but the Barbarian right now stuck with the Anvil, who's also been pushed into a single spot. So what do you make of that, Barbarian and Jim Neidhart?
I feel I don't know. It would be kind of an odd matchup. I don't know how good it would be. But Barbarian's a pretty damn good worker. Maybe he can really carry Neidhart. Neidhart was good, just more of a tag guy. I feel like he could carry him a bit. But I don't know, that's kind of a weird thing. And I feel like Warlord wasn't as good of a worker as Barbarian, so it definitely, but he had a better look just because he was bigger. Not even better look, he was just bigger. So he could possibly feud with Hogan kind of thing. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. When you actually look at the guys, it's who could be broken off from the tag team? Okay, Bret, we could actually see this guy's great work. Okay, Barbarian possibly. So kind of intriguing to see what they do with the guys. I always feel like Neidhart was destined for a tag team run.
No, I agree with you. He was explosive. I mean, he was amazing. Heart Foundation, top 2 tag teams for me growing up. I mean, I love them. They really complemented each other well with what they did in the ring. So you ain't going to hear any complaints from me about the Anvil growing up. But just right here, right now, Barbarian and the Anvil, I mean, I guess I'm thankful it wasn't the Warlord. You know, I picture this match being rest holds galore, but I can only imagine how much worse it would have been had the Warlord been pegged with Neidhart. So we've got that much of saving grace coming our way. And then the Jim Duggan Haku feud begins, as we know Duggan about to be crowned the new king of the World Wrestling Federation.
You gotta love it, baby. I think Haku, kind of an underrated king. I loved him with that gimmick. I thought that was great. Duggan was hilarious. I don't know why he needed to be the king, but the crowd ate it up. They loved it.
Well, it worked. If something looked goofy, you know, it typically got over, and Duggan got that over. Dusty got polka dots over, and Jim Duggan got a crown and cape over there for a while here in 1989 anyway. We go on. We're going to look at the B show, and the matches being slapped here into the Cornwall, Ontario Civic Complex. We're going to work all over the place here, up in Maryland and New York, Washington, D.C., and down in the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. Going to bring the B crew. And that includes Greg Valentine over the Blue Blazer, doing nothing with those guys. Jimmy Powers pinning Richard Charland, Ontario Zone, also scoring wins over Mike Sharp and Bill Woods, oddly, in some of the other towns. Red Rooster continuing his feud over the Brooklyn Brawler. Tito Santana beginning his feud with Rick Martel. Those matches ending in disqualifications. Sometimes Rick Martel using the ropes to pin Tito Santana. The Hitman Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. What a hell of a B show here, man. Time limit draw between the Hitman and Mr. P.
Damn, that I'm interested in. That sounds awesome.
15 and 20-minute time limit draws following Tito Santana and Rick Martel on the same card. That's not even your main event matches, right? Those are just we're getting those guys primed and ready.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I feel like every 2 years, for some reason, the WWF was like, hey, let's try Bret Hart versus Perfect. 89, they had that feud. 91, and then 93 again, randomly, like around the King of the Ring 93, right, which I think is their best match. But and even SummerSlam 91 is awesome. I just think King of the Ring 93 is better. But it's like every 2 years, like, oh, why don't we go with our two, best workers? Put them in a little feud together. Yeah.
You can't go wrong. What you can go wrong with, however, is bringing back Hillbilly Jim to the fold on a full-time basis. I don't know that Hillbilly's been full-time in years, but I think they finally had enough of the honky tonk man, and they come call, hey, what would really piss Mr. Ferris off? Let's bring Hillbilly Jim back full-time and put him in a feud with the honky tonk man. Honky tonk man scoring victories over Hillbilly every night, and they both share Memphis ties as regarding to some of their early pushes in the wrestling business, but this ain't it, man. In 1989, honky tonk man versus Hillbilly Jim.
Man, I don't know about that one. I wonder what was going on with Hillbilly, though. Was he injured or something? Like, how come, like, there was a little bit of an exit there?
Well, Hillbilly really hasn't done any full-time work since prior to WrestleMania 3, at the very least. It may have went back even deeper than that. I don't recall.
He did hurt his leg, right? Was that an ongoing issue?
That may have been.
God, that was 85-ish, right?
85,
yeah. So that wouldn't have been. Well, maybe, who the hell knows? Could have been an ongoing issue, but
well, I know they like to use Hillbilly in the Coliseum video department. They would send him around and do the advertising and things like that. Yep. So he was kind of a mascot in many ways at the same time.
Yep.
But it was always weird, the use of Hillbilly. He would just randomly pop up and go away. And right now he's working full time for the first time in a long time. And Honky Tonk Man drawing that short straw. That'll teach you to refuse to do a job, Wayne. That'll teach you indeed. So, but he is going over on Hillbilly, so at least he's got that much going for him here.
Well, thank God, yeah.
Double main event on these beast shows, bringing in two different title matches. Demolition battling the Twin Towers to double countouts, double disqualifications. No pinfalls in these matches, but it doesn't get any bigger of a challenger right now than Akeem and the Big Boss Man.
Oof. I love that. Love the Twin Towers.
Well, coming out of that feud with the Mega Powers, it only seems fitting that they would get a title shot here. And obviously the Brain Busters are knocking on the door as well, but I think after working, even losing to Hogan and Savage, they look good in doing so. They've been prominently featured on NBC. Boss Man will be there again with the cage match later this month, so they certainly belong in that tag title scene right now, as does The Ultimate Warrior belonging in the Intercontinental title scene had the belt stolen from him against Rick Rude. At WrestleMania 5, they're doing return matches as the main event here on the B-shows.
Man, whatever was going on with Rude and Warrior, Rude always seemed to be able to get a good match out of him. Like, I don't know, they always, even in 90, I thought their feud was great, their matches were great. I always feel like Rude, for some reason, had great chemistry with the Warrior. I know some people would say differently about different guys working the Warrior. He was rough, he didn't do this. But Savage and Rude, man, they had awesome matches.
Well, that's unfortunate for Rick Rude. That's why he gets stuck with the Warriors so much here over the next couple of years. I'm sure he wished he could have done a little more here in the company, but I guess he didn't mind too much, working with the Warrior. Probably got paid pretty decent. And boy, they really stacked these It's going to be hard, these A shows. I know they're going to feature Hogan, so we'll get to that in a minute, but it's going to be hard as a fan to top this for me. Warrior and Rude, Demolition and Twin Towers, Tito Santana and Rick Martel, Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart. Right now, I'm voting the B show if I'm going to one of these things. C show's a distant third. I have no doubt about that, with Andre and Stud leading the way there. I feel bad for the Rockers. I hope they get
I can't wait to hear what the hell's on the A show. The B show is loaded.
Yeah, well, they're stacked, and I think that's the idea here. You only need Hogan and his opponent to sell the A shows. So the cards are usually a little lighter than the B shows. The B shows are more stacked. With talent, per se.
Yeah,
so,
yep.
Because you need more to draw the house. Here on the A shows, we're going to go to Arizona, California, Missouri, Indiana, and all the way down to Orlando, Florida to close things out. May the 8th, 8 days in a row, we're going to see Paul Roma over Boris Zukov, women's champion Rockin' Robin getting a decent payday here over Judy Martin, the Warlord in singles action over Koko Beware, Dino Bravo defeating the mighty Hercules. Listen to this one, John, and I've seen a couple of the matches now on eGads. The Bushwhackers scoring pinfall victories over the Brainbusters.
No.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes, indeed. Well, they got to establish the new team, I suppose, of Luke and Butch. But Arn and Tully, I think they were testing them. Are they going to cooperate here? Are we going to have a problem? And they jobbed the Bushwhackers for an entire loop. And then eventually, they'll get the tag gold. So I think a lot of that was just to kind of test them as well. What are we working with here? Are these guys going to be?
Yeah. Yep. Are they going to do business? Yeah, for sure. Just crazy to think like, oh my God, they're going to take a job. They're going to job to the Bushwhackers. But yeah, it kind of makes sense. It doesn't actually hurt either.
Well, semi-main event on these shows is going to see Jake Roberts before he's off the road in just a couple weeks' time here. Jake over the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase by pinfall. And of course, May the 8th in Orlando is when he's arrested. And that's pretty much essentially the end, I believe, of the Snake Man on the road for the time being. But Jake over DiBiase in the semi-main, and in your big cities, it's Randy Savage over Hulk Hogan on a count-out. We're gonna bring it back, brother. But in these smaller cities, Randy Savage defeating Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and they have now put some of the managers back on the road. For a while there, they weren't bringing the managers on the road, but Sensational Sherri heavily involved in the finish of all these matches. Whether it's beating Beefcake or Hogan taking the count out, Sherri heavily involved.
I love that. Basically, that whole card is just wrapped around Hogan Savage. I just love that. Yeah. But that's obviously all you would care, all you would need, because you sure as hell ain't there for Dino Bravo. I tell you that much. Even though you love Dino Bravo.
Dino Bravo and Hercules.
The mighty Hercules.
Who is the strongest man in the WWF? I don't know if I want to know with Dino Bravo in the ring, but just a really, really weak undercard. But like you said, it's wrapped around Hogan when he shows up, and it's wrapped around the Savage Beefcake feud. Just recently on TV, Savage had attacked Beefcake and cut his hair, so we've got a little bit of heat and storyline going into those main events in the smaller cities as well. And so that's going to bring us to, and I wanted to run this card down here for you. This is what they used this competition up against Wrestle War. We talked about them running late, almost to midnight, doing an 11-match card. And it looked like this. They brought the A and B shows together. And so we get Valentine over the Blue Blazer, Tito Santana and Rick Martel battling to a no contest, Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect to a time limit draw, Hillbilly over Honky Tonk on a DQ, Ultimate Warrior scoring a win over Rick Rude on a count-out, Red Rooster versus the Brooklyn Brawler, Rooster getting the Duke. They bring back the Tito Martel match later in the night for a rematch. Got to stretch the time out, man. It's Martel, this time pinning Tito in 3 minutes with using the ropes for leverage. Jimmy Powers over Mike Sharp. Demolition defeating the Twin Towers by DQ. Jake Roberts pinning Ted DiBiase. What date was this again? The 6th, so Jake would have still been there. and Randy Savage scoring a victory over Brutus Beefcake. So no Hulk Hogan on the card. Let's just stretch this out. Yeah. Let's just see what we can do here.
Wow, that's kind of crazy. But obviously Macho, big draw. But, I mean, kind of loaded. Brett Perfect, Warrior Rude, Jake, Dibiase. He's kind of loaded. Demos are on there, Twin Towers. Kind of loaded anyway, even without the Hulkster. But, man, I love that they're stretching things out and really trying to hurt Crockett.
Well, another thing that the WWF do is beginning to do here in the month of May, and obviously to promote the upcoming movie No Holds Barred, but also maybe to get him acclimated with the WWF ring and the feel of the fans, is they begin to bring Zeus out to many of the house shows for quote-unquote interviews, some with the Brother Love show set, some with Mean Gene Okerlund. I'm sure none of them were very good per se, but what do you make of that to put Tony Lister on the road prior to him engaging in an actual wrestling match or feud at this point in time? He's simply there to promote the No Holds Barred movie.
I like it. Smart marketing. You got to get him out there. You got to promote. You got to try to, get that out there. Maybe even get him used to the road, because obviously they're going to get him used to wrestling, and he's going to have a couple matches, so they're probably getting him used to the road as well. I like that a lot, and I think Zeus had an awesome look. So I feel like if you were like, look. If you're there, you're like, oh my God, this is the guy from the movie. He's a monster. Like, I think it's great marketing.
Since Hogan returned from filming the movie, returning full-time basically at SummerSlam back in 1988, he's been on the road full-time. Hulk's not really taking much time off. I've noticed he's missing a lot of shows here. I have to imagine he's going and making the rounds promoting the movie the good guy way, right? Maybe a talk show or whatever they need him to do. Kissing babies, shaking hands, whatever you got to do. They can't do that with Zeus, so Vince needs to promote the movie as well. And since Hollywood and whomever has Hulk Hogan, Vince brings in Zeus. And so I would have brought in Stan Hansen myself, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. Or Sunday Beach. Yeah, I agree.
Well, why not? Sense. Yeah, any of those guys. Bring them all in, hell. But Zeus is on his way, guys. Stay tuned. Unfortunately, No Holds Barred is coming. Not only to a theater near you, but it's coming to the Patreon of WrestleCopia as well.
Were you a fan of Joan Severance?
I didn't get it. It didn't do much for me. Wow. I'm an Elvira fan, John. If I haven't told you already.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I can't believe you're not a fan of Joan Severance, but okay.
Why is she? Did you interview her too, John? Did you?
No. I wish. Never. One day, brother. Yeah, no, writing that down, Joan Severance. Okay.
Well, I'm going to scroll through here, see if anything else sparks my interest, and see what else we can come up with here. The A, B, and C shows remain the same quite a bit. Now, at this point in time, on the Grenade on TV last week, Greg Valentine had defeated Ronnie Garvin in a retirement match, which was, talk about an abrupt storyline, But Garvin no longer a professional wrestler. By the month of May, he's out here on the house shows working as a referee. So we're going to implement Ronnie Garvin. He's going to be...
I love that feud. I don't know why. I know it's a C-level feud. I know it was meaningless. I don't know why. It was always interesting, that feud. I love that feud. I liked their matches together. They were awesome.
They were
obviously there's a great MSG match in '89 where so many people say it's one of the best matches of the year, one of the best matches of the 80s. I mean, they just tear each other up with chops and stuff. I just thought it was an awesome feud. I loved the chemistry between those guys. And it was almost like basically, hey, you got nothing going on with Garvin. Hey, you got nothing going on with Valentine. They're both really good. They're both veterans. Both going to knock the hell out of each other. All right, put them in a feud together. But to throw the wrinkle in there of having him be the referee, I never quite understood that and didn't get it, but I did like it. But just so odd. And I just remember randomly, didn't he, I don't think he was a referee for Hogan versus Honky Tonk, but I think they crossed paths or something. I just remember that was the only time him and Hogan kind of crossed paths, was him as a referee. Just odd, very odd.
It's so abrupt. He just came to the company at the very tail end of 1988 going into 89.
And he had just turned on Dusty. He was going to a heel program with the Booker, and he didn't want to do it. Weird.
Well, he said he wasn't going to go around doing jobs to Dusty every night. Now here we know where they're going to cross paths before too long here, and we'll talk about that here at the end of this episode. Actually, we're going to get there in just a couple minutes. Big Dust and Ronnie Garvin and guys like Ronnie Garvin. But so Garvin has now been relegated to a lowly referee, but we're going to see some fun spots ensue on TV in the weeks to come with Rugged Ron here as a ref, and as you talked about the the feud, it was a guilty pleasure. It wasn't meant to get over. It was kind of just to give those guys something to do. But when they got in the ring, I talked about it last week on the Grenade, even their shoving was stiff. These guys just beat the shit out of each other every time they got the Rumble match. So is great. Good, yeah. Everything these guys did, even these little 2-3 minute matches they were giving them on TV here to build to this storyline was solid. It was very solid for what it was. And the Hammer didn't have time to wait 15 minutes to get warmed up when he got in there with Garvin. You were either warmed up or you were going to go down. So that was the one time I saw Valentine just come into the ring ready to go, and you have to be in there with Ronnie Garvin. That's a great call. Now, around this time, remember, May the 8th, Jake Roberts is arrested, so they make the call. And believe it or not, Roddy Piper comes in as the fill-in for Jake the Snake Roberts. Vince's old motto was, if you can't give him what you promised, you got to try to give him something even better. And many times they succeeded. And in this instance, no Jake Roberts. That's okay. We've got the hot rod. And for the record, to put a little context to this, Roddy is not back in the ring. Roddy does not go back full time to WWF action until the fall of after SummerSlam of 1989. So Hot Rod is not even here to wrestle right now, but he's filling in. And I'm sure he's getting paid to fill in as well. But he's working matches with the $1 Million Man here in May.
That's one of those things, too, where I'm sure it's like, all right, we lost Jake. Let's get somebody better. Okay, we'll get Piper. Huge name, huge draw, huge star. But I guarantee you, obviously, money played a big factor. But I bet you, because you always hear stories of Roddy. Who am I working? What am I doing? Who's winning? Like he wants to know everything. He's very detailed. He wants to know everything that's going on. It's like, oh, you're working Dibiase. He's probably like, it's a night off. I'll do it. That's easy. Like, it's probably, so easy to work with Ted. It's such a good, proficient worker that it's just like, all right, I'll do it for Dibiase. That's easy.
Yeah. No, that's an absolutely good call. It probably had a lot to do, not just with the money, but who it was as well. Ted Dibiase. I think I can handle that. I mean, if you can't work Ted Dibiase, you have no business in a ring at all. Also here in the month of May, we talked about the reason Tom Magee may have been given a push to begin with, or had high hopes, was that match, that infamous match with Bret Hart. They do it again here in May of 1989 at a wrestling challenge taping. It feels like this is right here is where Vince goes, all right, rematch. Let's see if he's learned anything since the last time. I don't know how this one plays out. I do know immediately following this taping, Tom Magee begins doing jobs to Tim Horner on the house shows. So that's the tell of the beginning of the end of Tom Magee here in the WWE, the Mega Man. Yep.
Maybe he didn't learn, because obviously we know Bret goes on to be one of the greatest workers of all time, and Tom Magee's doing jobs to White Lightning, who pre-Shameless White Lightning, Tim Horner there. It's just funny though, like if you think about it, it's okay. The Holy Grail, right? The Bret Magee match, so good. 10-minute classic, if you will. It's short and sweet. 3 or 4 years later, and no, not so much.
No.
Like Tom Magee didn't get better, yeah.
So for the house shows Hogan is attending, he's working the Macho Man right now, but they're not doing pinfall finishes. It's not a replay of WrestleMania 5. It's Randy Savage with new manager Sherri in his corner, going over in the Hulkster by count out after interference from Sherri. She's playing a big part in it. So they're doing two things here. They're bringing the match back. Let's get a little more money out of this thing.
And Savage is getting a win.
Yes, and they're implementing Sherri. They're making her, she's not just a corner piece. She's not just another beautiful woman. I mean, Sherri had that different kind of vibe about her. Like, she'd be a fun
ass
time.
Kicker.
Yeah. I like
that too. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I just love that. Like, you have Savage, right? But you want to continue through with Hogan because it made them so much money. I mean, not only Mega Powers explode. It's like, these guys are a huge draw. How do we continue it? Oh, let's add Sherri to the mix, and let's actually have Savage start going over a little bit here, and let's change things up. Great mixture. I loved it. That's like just one of, like, to be honest, one of my just all-time favorite feuds, and she definitely played a huge part of it.
Oh, she was amazing. I mean, it takes her a while to get her chops with the promos. She is not very good for a while here on the microphone, if I remember correctly, but she is amazing in her performance and everything else that she does in the corner of the Macho Man. And I'm looking forward to the next 2 years here on the Grenade, I'll tell you that.
I was going to say, and they last together for a while. Yeah.
It's going to be a fun ride through WrestleMania 7 for sure. Now, here's a fun team. I don't know if you remember these matches. These really caught my eye the first time I saw these, because the loner, Bad News Brown, has found himself a tag team partner for the short term, a guy by the name of the Brooklyn Brawler. This match will actually air on Primetime Wrestling upcoming later in the month of May. Bad News Brown and the Brooklyn Brawler defeating the team of the Blue Blazer and Hillbilly Jim.
Why the hell is that a team?
And Blue Blazer doing the job, so you can see the writing on the wall for poor Owen Hart at this point. But why is any of this a team? Why is this match happening? This is like Lethal Lottery all day long.
Yeah, really. And Bad News doesn't trust anybody. He doesn't want to be a part of anybody. He's going to team with Brooklyn Brawler? Jeez.
Well, they're Harlem, Brooklyn, maybe there's a connection there. Now, I do remember this, and I don't know if this is going to be on the tapings here in May. I don't recall. I'm going to scroll through here in a minute and find out. But there's going to be a mishap here, a miscue when they team again. And that's going to immediately lead to the dissolution of Bad News Brown and Brooklyn Brawler as a tag team. They're going to have a match themselves, and it's pretty much a squash. And I think by this point, the Brawler no longer with Heenan in his corner, at least not here when Bad News is at ringside.
Interesting. I don't think Bad News would play well with the Weasel. You know what I mean?
No. Bobby said, on Prime Time that's one guy he won't manage because you can't control him. So even in, refusing to manage someone, Bobby was going to put him over. The reason why he couldn't manage, he can't be controlled, So that was kind of cool of Bobby Heenan, though, putting the Brooklyn Bad News Brown over. Let's see what else we got coming up here. We've talked about the Genius making his debut, scoring wins in the preliminary matches. So Lanny Poffo getting a resurgence of a push. Here it is, the Bushwhackers on June the 5th. Primetime's going to air, tape back here in May. Bushwhackers over Bad News and the Brawler, leading to a fight between the two. So we have that to look forward to in the weeks to come here on the Grenade.
What were they? They were trying to build up like a Bad News versus Brooklyn Brawler feud or something?
I don't think so.
What?
I don't think so. They blow it off like a week. I think Bad News just squashes them like a week after that, or so, if I remember correctly.
Weird.
Yeah,
wow, that is just so odd.
Something for Brown to do on TV, I guess, in the interim while he's doing nothing else. And here's another guy who's going to be, he's going to be doing something eventually here with the Honky Tonk Man. Right now, though, he's making his return to the company, talking about, brother, the Superfly, Jimmy Snuka back in action. Were you a Jimmy Snuka fan before, you found out all those allegations anyway?
Definitely. I love Snuka. I always thought he was like to me, like epitome of like a huge star. You couldn't really put your finger on it, but he just had it. He was just like, holy shit, it's Superfly. One of those like original iconic guys, like, the original LJNs, if you will, like those guys just was like, man, this is a superstar. And that was the Superfly.
Well, on the last episode of The Grenade, we talked about a job guy, an enhancement worker who had good height, a good build. He'd been on some things, and he had a nice tan. He looked the part of a wrestler to the point where I said, why wasn't this guy anything? Brick Bronski was the name. He was in a tag team match against the Brainbusters, and I had to Google him. And the guy was given an opportunity after that TV taping right here on the house shows. Jeff Bronski is going to work 6 shows. He's going to get a week of work here with the WWF, scoring victories and losing also to Barry Horowitz. So they're even giving him a couple wins here just to test him out. Now, Bronski had told the story that he was offered a contract, but he really wasn't happy with the way things played out at the TV tapings. He didn't really care for the way the company was ran. I don't know what that means, but Bronski kind of steps away and never comes back to the WWF. But I believe he worked a little bit in Indianapolis as well. Definitely had the look down. I'm surprised he didn't do anything else.
Doesn't sound very familiar to me, to be honest.
No, and I covered some of his other work. He appeared in a couple of movies. He would do some indie work in the 90s, promote a little bit in the 90s. Passes away, I believe it was due to complications from COVID a few years ago. So, but yeah, that was just another if kind of guy, kind of deal. So he definitely had enough of a look that it made me go and check him out. Rockin' Robin is still on the cards here. I think she's going to be here for another month or so. Robin and Judy Martin are pretty much the only ladies left now that Sherri's a manager. So this is pretty much the match we're going to get until they do away with the women's division, which will be right here in the early summer of 1989. The experiment never really got going for me. I mean, the Bomb Angels were amazing. The tag team stuff they were doing with the Glamour Girls was great. But outside of that, this Rockin' Robin thing, it never took off for me. It never took flight, Robin, if you will.
I don't know. I just I don't see it. Didn't see it. I just don't think it was going to work out.
I don't know, if it had anything to do with her family. It's like, well, she's got brothers, she's got a father, the wrestling business. Let's give her a shot over, the story. If you listen to Baby Doll, it came down to her or Rockin' Robin, and they went with Robin because she was an unknown, and Baby Doll had been with Crockett. And so I believe that's how Baby Doll tells the story anyway, that they were both training at the same time. They were both going for that same spot, and Robin was the one that winds up with the spot, even though she had never worked outside of training. She'd never even worked in the business, and she goes right into the WWF. Welcome, Rockin' Robin.
Wow, okay, interesting.
And that showed early on, by the way, John. Just saying. So, let's see what
Rockin' Robin. I wonder if there was ever any sort of dispute there with using that name and with that song. You know what I mean? I wonder.
I guess she would have had to get over for there to be a dispute. Sorry, Robin. I'm giving you too much. I'm just having fun here, man. Come on, guys. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize, but not really. So the Spectrum no longer carrying TV, no more wrestling on the Prism Network, but we do get Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage there, drawing 12,326 coming out of WrestleMania 5. Looking at some of the other dates here, seeing if we had any big drawing numbers here. 14,000 out to Edmonton, Alberta for Hulk Hogan, pinning Randy Savage in Calgary and Edmonton. So you have to imagine they're not planning on coming back to do the Calgary loop again, but they do some decent numbers here. Let's see. We got 8,500 in Saskatchewan. We've got the Saddle Dome. I don't have numbers for Calgary, but I do have Edmonton at 14,000. So they're definitely drawing the house there.
That's pretty good. And I know, obviously, you'd want Savage to win and somehow count out, DQ, whatever, to have a return date to run the 10 again. Obviously, like you mentioned, they're not going to, be running it. So Hogan must go over there and Hogan must pose. So he's got to win.
Must pose, pal. Indeed, Roddy Piper still working the house shows over Ted DiBiase at this point. We're coming to the end of May. I did get a kick out of this. I thought this was cool. Vince would have never done this in the later years, but here in Calgary, May the 27th, all year so far, Owen Hart has been relegated to doing jobs. To Akeem, to Greg Valentine, to Bad News Brown, to whomever he's been put in the ring, Mr. Perfect. And there's nothing wrong with a lot of those names going over on Owen. But, it's pretty obvious that at this point, they don't have any plans for the Blue Blazer. However, when they get to Calgary, the Blue Blazer scores a disqualification victory over Bad News Brown. So at least they protected Owen. They didn't job him out in his hometown.
Nice. I like that. And it's crazy. Bad News is so over in Calgary that I'm surprised he didn't go over there. So nice. They're very cool for Owen. And
that was, wise of them. Even though Hogan and Savage are going to sell the house, I mean, you bring some of the Calgary guys with you. So Owen's there. Bad News is there. Guys like that are on the card. We go to the final show of the month of May the 29th, 12,000 strong out here. It's Memorial Day in the States, but we're in Montreal, Quebec at the Forum, which always does well. We're going to look at the final card of the month of May. Tim Horner over Barry Horowitz, Paul Roma defeating the Brooklyn Brawler, Warlord over Jim Neidhart now, Bret Hart battling Kurt Hennig once again to a 20-minute time limit draw, Dino Bravo over the Mighty Hercules. Egads, this is a rough card. We're going to find out why they drew 12,000. I think you can guess why here, John, in just a moment. Demolition defeating the Twin Towers proper. I got a pinfall here in this one. We also have, I'm going to call it a double main event. But first, we're going to go to the main event. You're going to see why. Right now, the main event is Randy Savage again scoring another count out over the Hulkster. So Hogan is doing a job, likely coming back here in Montreal at the Forum as well. But 12,000, they've been drawing easily 12, 14, whatever the case may be in all these bigger arenas here throughout the month of May. And these are count-out victories, so it's going to be interesting to see if that's enough to bring people back to watch the Hulkster go over.
I have a feeling it is, though. I think it is. I think people were still wanting to see that, I feel like.
Well, that was the main event, and that drew the house. But to me, this is the biggest piece of news the entire month of May. I've been waiting to get here. May the 29th, Roddy Piper is not the substitute for Jake Roberts here against the $1 Million Man, but rather... he has arrived. Indeed, if you will, baby, the American Dream. Dusty Rhodes has arrived in the World Wrestling Federation here on May the 29th in Montreal, scoring a pinfall victory over the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Big Dust is here, John.
Just to be a fly on the wall in the locker room when he comes in, I would have paid to see that, just because he worked with some of those guys. Yes. He feuded with some of those guys. Like literally, he's booking shows. He's the booker of the competition. He's kind of the face of the competition. You got a guy named Virgil on the card making fun of him. You get DiBiase making fun. You got Vince making fun of him, and then they're going to bring him in. So very, very intriguing. And obviously, he didn't end well with him and the Herd crew over there, and that was kind of a the reason for the exit. But, man, to be a fly on the wall when he came in the locker room, I can't even imagine what that was like.
Well, I'm so glad you set me up here because I have some notes on what it might have been like here when Big Dust arrives. But you're right, going from the African Dream Hakeem to the bodyguard Virgil and all these little jabs they had taken it at Dusty Rhodes. Here he is. He's part of the company now. And this first part I got from the Observer. I'm going to read this little excerpt, and then we're going to go into some other news I got here. The shockwaves have been pretty strong this past week when the word got out of the newest acquisition of Titan Sports, none other than Dusty Rhodes. There is no word on what role Rhodes will play with Titan upon his planned arrival, tentatively scheduled for August, but he has clearly popped up here as early as the end of May. The announcement within Titan got over like a lead balloon, says DeMeltz. Among several of the Titan wrestlers unhappy, the word from Titan is that Dusty Rhodes is simply coming in as a wrestler and won't have any involvement whatsoever in the creative process. That is key. Rhodes, on the other hand, has told friends that he's coming in for 1 year as a wrestler, and then he will become a booker, if you will. The idea that Dusty would join Titan at this time comes as no surprise from the standpoint that Dusty's own Florida Championship Wrestling, and of course that PWF idea, never gained any significant fan base in Florida, and Rhodes originally wanted to work for Titan back in January when he first left the NWA to begin with. So, do you think there's any merit? Because we know Dusty likes to tell some stories, not lie, but just tell some stories. Do you believe any merit in this, that I'm coming in for a year, the wrestler, then I'm going to be the booker, baby?
I don't know if I could quite buy that, just because the Vince factor there. I can't see that, but I can also oddly see Vince, because you always hear stories of him like lying to the guys, like, oh hey Taz, you're gonna have a WrestleMania feud with the Undertaker. Like he always just like throws in weird, like it's a possibility, pal. You're gonna have an opportunity, pal. I could see you being the booker, pal. Like I could see maybe Vince throwing that out there, but I like really though I can't really see that, because I could kind of see at one end like Vince just being like, no, you're a wrestler now. You're gonna understand. You're a wrestler now. You know what I mean? Like I can't see Vince wanting him to be the booker. After all that.
I'm sure that there were a lot of upset people in that locker room that would have never allowed that to happen anyway. But on top of that, I think it was very smart of Dusty to say, "Well, I'm going to wrestle for a year first, and then I'm going to be the bookers." That way,
why not?
Nobody can call into question for at least a year if Dusty's telling the, you know what I mean? So I like that he threw that in there, but at the same time, you're right. I've heard stories of Bill Eadie stating that the idea was when they took him off the road after Survivor Series that he was going, or I think he quit after that, but up to that point, he was under the belief that he was going to get some sort of a booking role and play a part there. I know Jake Roberts said, that he was trying, supposedly felt like he was supposed to be getting some form of a booking role or have more say in the booking, when he, did what he did with The Undertaker and why he wanted to jump over to, WCW before Bill Watts came and screwed that up for him. But it's interesting at the very least. So there's another little piece here. There's a ton of heat among the wrestlers, particularly those who formerly worked in the NWA and the UWF over the arrival of Dusty Rhodes. So much so that a memo was sent out to wrestlers to treat Dusty with respect and for there to be no problems in the locker room. Several guys are claiming that they are going to do this and that when Dusty arrives, but it's likely nothing is going to happen. And of course, we know, as far as we know, nothing does happen, but it is very interesting how many people have went on their way because of miscommunication and probably a lot worse than that with Dusty Rhodes. Ronnie Garvin certainly comes to mind immediately. We were talking about that. He was more vocal about it, but you think about some of the other guys that took off shortly before that. Now, I know Arn and Tully weren't necessarily over Dusty. It was more over money and things of that nature, but Dusty was still booking when Arn and Tully left. There was a lot of guys that have left in the last, Big Bubba, guys like that have left the company. So it's, and we know Dusty's going to feud with the Boss Man later here this year.
And the Virgil thing, the Hakeem thing. So, there's a lot of tension, a lot of craziness going on. But you got to hand to Dusty, though. He goes in, he does those crazy vignettes, does what he wants. He does the polka dots, eventually does what they want. He does have a feud with Dibiase, Boss Man. Sapphire thing is obviously a rib. Like the Savage feud is great, but they don't really do anything as far as like giving Dusty like that big win. The Mania match is really short, so it's interesting. They kind of like keep poking him, but he does, good soldier, does whatever he wants, and it didn't affect his pop. He was over like Rover.
Over the entire duration
Yes.
he was there. Going back and watching some of his work now, he had quit. He had checked out long before, he left the WWF. There was a match where he shoots a job guy into the ropes for a backdrop, and the job guy had taken the backdrop before Dusty even stood up. Like, Dusty just stands up like this after the guy threw himself. I'm like, oh my God. And this made air. It was so embarrassing. If you watch, he loses the polka dots by the end there. He's definitely checked out. And I'm not even trying to rip on Dusty. I'm just saying that's how over he was. He didn't have to do shit. And as a kid, I didn't even realize he wasn't doing shit. I just love, and you pointed it out. They gave him those vignettes. He got him over. Let's give him polka dots. That'll show him. Got him over. I know. Let's get this Sapphire in here. Oh my goodness. Got that over.
And then had to turn her heel.
They had nothing left.
Crazy, yeah.
They had nothing left to throw at Dusty. Yeah. Point proven is what I said about the American Dream. And I told my son this not too long ago. I said the only human being on earth that could have got that Red Rooster gimmick over was Dusty Rhodes. If Dusty had just come back a little sooner and he had gotten that Red Rooster character, man, we'd be praising that thing to this day. I could see Dusty crowing, and oh man, it would have been very interesting for sure.
I agree. That would have been great.
But that's going to wrap it up here this week, guys. Another fun news and results episode of The Grenade. When we return next time, we have another special edition with another special guest. And so stay tuned to social media for that. It's going to be a special conversation. Off topic, we're going to go move ahead into the 1990s and talk a little bit about Hulk Hogan, John. But we're going to talk about Hulk Hogan from a different era and maybe a different promotion. And so we're going to bring in another guest next week here for that. And then we're going to jump back into May TV here in 2 weeks' time on the Grenade program. But John, I want to thank you so much for being here with me, talking about all the great talent, the feuds, and everything going on, and giving us a couple stories that I had never heard before. So we appreciate you being here, part of the show, man.
Hey, no problem. Love giving those little anecdotes. So I learned a lot today too. So good stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. The Jake Roberts, that whole story came out. That I found that very interesting. Something I didn't know before. It's crazy. I'm always learning something new here. And
crazy,
so
but sadly par for the course.
No. I can't say it really shocks me, but
I'm not shocked at all.
It's still a new story to me.
Yes, way new to me too, because I thought he was injured. But I guess
Jake Roberts, 4 a.m., arguing about women, punching a guy. It all checks out to me. So I just
makes sense.
Well, once again, John, remind everybody where they can check you out, what you got coming up here in the near future, man.
So you can find and follow me at 2Man Power Trip on Twitter and on Instagram. You go to tpublic.com/store/TMPT. Get some gear, some good stuff there. Love that stuff. Also got Taking to School Dr. Tom Pritchard, got the Business of the Business, got a lot of cool, different things, the interviews coming up. Maybe a rare one that people are not that familiar with, the Wild Thing Steve Ray from the old UWF. Interestingly enough, exactly. Went wild, baby. I didn't realize he was supposed to be eventually the new Rockers. Like it was going to possibly be him and Jannetty at one point. I didn't know he had a couple WWE tryouts. I didn't know that he almost had a WCW contract as well. So we go, into the weeds a little bit there. So good stuff from him coming up. And then obviously got Vince Russo coming back on the polarizing Vince Russo. And then of course, like I said, check the archives to have Johnny Ace, who you love. Eddie Sharkey's in the archive, and Tom McGee. So check that out as well.
That is so awesome. Yeah, I'm going to have to go do some digging. I have not heard the Eddie Sharkey interview. I don't believe so. I'm going to go check that one out specifically. That's so cool, John. We appreciate you doing this, man. Hopefully we'll have you back soon here in the WrestleCopia world. You're always welcome, and it's always a fun time talking with your brother. We'll have John back as soon as we can, guys. Stay tuned for more Wrestling Memory Grenade goodness next week. But for right now, we're going to sign off. Thanks again, John, for being here with me, brother.
Thank you, Double R, AKR Double. Appreciate it.
And on that note, we're going to wrap things up here this week on The Grenade. Be back very soon with another edition, jumping back into May TV for 1989 of the World Wrestling Federation. But once again, I want to thank John Poz so very much. And in the interim, next week, a very special episode coming your way as we discuss a completely different time frame and a completely different promotion, talking about WCW 1994, as I welcome from booking the territory, Mean Mike Mills going to join the Wrestling Memory Grenade. Wow, we're really hitting the stride now. We've talked with Brian R. Solomon, Joe Morata, of course, John Poz, and now Mike Mills from the BTT Army. headed our way here next week to talk all about 1994 in World Championship Wrestling and the arrival of Hulk Hogan, dude. Going to be a fantastic time. I encourage everybody to stay tuned right here next week. Same grenade time, same grenade station. But until then, this is Ray Russell saying from pillar to post and coast to coast, you pull the pin and I'll pick up the pieces right here on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. I'll see you next week. Don't miss it. Be there.
I've been telling everybody that I was the one that was carrying Strike Force all along, that I was the best man on the team. And tonight, I just proved it. I showed it to you. I showed it to everybody, to the delight of my new manager, Slick.
I'll tell you, Slick, you look as though you approve of what took place earlier.
Exactly. There have been no deviations from the path that we've chosen to take, and it's one of mayhem and brutality. And believe me, the match tonight between Santana and Martel will never take place because he's too beat up to answer the bell, brother.